When I was a beginning gardener, irrigation was an afterthought. But as you'll see here, starting a new garden with over 10 years of experience, irrigation was top of mind. In this first video of this kitchen garden series, you saw where I changed my whole garden location based on proximity to water. It's that important. If that was the case, then how was I going to water the raised beds? I didn't even think twice. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But first, a brief backstory so you'll understand my decision and maybe you can relate. Irrigation has always been a thorn in my side. I started with overhead watering and then hand watering, as most gardeners do, but I quickly realized that that was not working for me. Then I added drip lines and I used them for many years, but they had their own challenges. Next, I switched many of my raised beds to drip tape after hours of research and hours of labor, no kidding. While I liked it better than drip lines, especially for raised beds, I found myself underwhelmed at the results. Then I learned about the Garden in Minutes garden grids. They sent me my first ones to try out, and you can see that first experience in this video. The crops that grew in those beds were the best fall crops I had ever had. And I realized that all this time I had been greatly underestimating the power of consistent, even water coverage. The Garden in Minutes garden grids are super easy to assemble, and they have absolutely lived up to their name. I'm not skilled in engineering of any type, which was probably why drip lines and drip tape were so difficult for me to master, even with all the tutorials that I followed. But this I could do. For this particular space, I'm using the Garden in Minutes garden grids on my rectangular raised beds. The beauty of these grids is that they come in so many different configurations to fit most common-sized beds. If you have a bed with corners like my wooden ones in my garden or the square metal raised beds that Garden in Minutes sells themselves, the grids fit right in. But if you have rounded beds like these, all you have to do is select cornerless. Now, I ended up deciding not to use these grids in this large round bed. That's the one configuration it was hard to make work, particularly with the height. So I'm going to try out using a garden Oya in the center of this bed and see how it goes. The Oya, with my limited experience with it in my greenhouse planter, works great but has space limitations. That's why I'm hoping that this will be big enough for this space in this round raised bed, and I'll check and adjust if not. But for my other beds, I have no doubt that the garden grids will provide full coverage as they always have. Back to setting up the garden grids. Another thing I love about them is how easy it is to connect multiple grids using their garden manifolds. They even offer custom length hoses. Now, I didn't quite estimate the correct length with mine, which was my bad. So I had a bit more than needed. Better than not having long enough though, right? But burying the lines in the gravel after I connected them worked out really well, and it makes the irrigation altogether very clean looking. As soon as freezing temperatures pass, I'll keep the grids connected to the water hose leading to the spigot on the side of the house. The grids themselves are fine in freezing weather. I keep mine in my garden all winter long, but my home spigot obviously is not. Once I get it permanently connected for the season, then I'll put the irrigation on a timer. I love using timers with irrigation. I know some people love hand watering, but it is not my thing. Set it and forget it is important to me. But before I set it and forget it, I will adjust how long each watering lasts based on the time of year and what I'm observing with my crops. At the beginning of the season, and especially when rains are frequent, it will water less. I love how I can adjust the flow based on how much water I want it to give the garden in a particular time. This is also helpful if you have less water pressure, depending on where your garden is, or you have a lot of water pressure, and you can adjust the flow rate that way. That's one of my favorite ways to adjust the watering in my Garden in Minutes garden grids. So as you can see, throughout the season, I will adjust, definitely increasing the duration and frequency and water flow in the summer. If you're looking for an easy way to irrigate your raised beds, you can tell how much I recommend the Garden in Minutes garden grids. In full disclosure, I am an affiliate with them, and you can get 7% off by using my code JourneyWithJill. We'll link that down in the description. But even if they hadn't sent me the grids to try, I would definitely purchase them. After years of failures and frustrations with all the other methods, these have been the answer to all of that. And now I can check off one more frustration from my list and enjoy my garden even more. One more thing, you can see that I set up my irrigation before I ever planted. I think that's ideal because you can get them set up and even use them in plant spacing, which I'll show you how to do in the next video. But you can add these grids anytime as long as the crops aren't too tall to add them. Now coming up, planting my first crops. You can see a couple of them are already in, but I'm still going strong in the planting. Subscribe to see that video next on what I chose, how I planted, what I'm getting ready to plant, including companion planting combinations and plant spacing. We are packing a whole lot of crops in this space and I can't wait to show you how. I'll see you in the next video.